Today, I'm going to be talking about my critical engagement with academic articles. So, the article that I chose to dive deeper into is called Understanding Disabilities Through Children's Literature. And I have attached a link to the article below just in case you'd like to go back and look at it later. Um, this article is very important because it discusses ways that we as teachers can be inclusive in our classroom and how we can help our students to be inclusive as well, which is extremely important and especially in the classroom. And this is also very important because as teachers, we will be teaching diverse learners, and that will include students with disabilities. So, librarians, teachers, and school counselors have used children's literature to help students with stressful issues such as abuse, adoption, death, and divorce for years. So, one process that is found to be very helpful for using literature is called bibliotherapy. And this is a process of using literature in therapeutic ways and is a strategy, again, that has been found effective for addressing the needs of students with disabilities and for those without disabilities to understand the lives of children with special needs and what it looks like for them on a daily basis. An effective curriculum based use of bibliotherapy would be a read aloud. And this article actually discussed a read aloud of a book that is about disabilities. And the teacher read this book aloud to their students. And then they had their students first make predictions about the plot of the book, and then they would frequently stop and ask questions to the students about what was happening in the book, why it was important. And at the end of the lesson, they would wrap it up by having students engage in a post reading discussion as well as problem solving and a reinforcement activity. And this just wraps everything up for the students. And then the teacher can have a proper discussion with the students about what they learned and how can they can apply these learnings to their everyday life. And for students with disabilities that may be in their school or in their classroom, and just how to be inclusive. So this article stood out to me for two reasons. The first reason is that I myself have two learning differences of reading comprehension and processing. And I wish that I would have been introduced to books such as students with, or children and adults with learning differences or special needs, and especially at a young age, and how this affects their life and especially their daily life, and how I myself can continue bettering myself. I think these are important conversations to be had with students, especially at a young age, so that they can carry these skills on as they progress in their education. Um, and while my needs may be different than others, I've still felt a sense of a similar pain. I've been teased, I've been made fun of for my learning differences. And so, on that level, I feel like I can relate to students that may have had to overcome similar challenges. And this is why I wish that these books were introduced to me as a young child. And I hope that they will be introduced to other young children so that they can gain these skills as well. The second reason that this article stood out to me is because I want to be a special education teacher. And I want to remind my students of their worth and how important they are. These books really do, I believe, inspire students and are very powerful, not only for students with disabilities, but also students that are without disabilities. And this is why I would love to use books like these to share the tools I learned, even from this article or from the books, with general education teachers in my classroom or that are just down the hall. Any teacher or administrator in my building so that they as well can inspire students with or without disabilities through literature itself, because literature is so powerful. So, the book that I chose to relate this article to is called Just Ask, Be Different, Be Brave, Be You by Sonia Sotomayor. And this book is very powerful because it celebrates the differences that every single person has. We're all different in our own way, and that doesn't just mean that you have to have special needs or you have to be different in a certain way. But regardless of who you are, you're different from everyone else in this world. And so the author actually reflects on her own experience as a child when she was diagnosed with diabetes. And she uses this book as a platform to inspire other children and even adults that may have experienced or are experiencing the same challenges and how they themselves can overcome them. So Sonia uses the differences that each person has as different superpowers, which I think is amazing, and children love that. So that everyone um, and that everyone in the book is focused on around children that are working as a community to build a garden. And throughout the book, they're each asking each other different questions about themselves, which I think not only encourages the students and the children in the book, but also it can encourage your students in your classroom. And this is a great time to have that conversation with your students and ask them to answer the questions that are in the book itself as self reflection or to answer with a partner. And because the theme of this book is that if we don't know something about someone, it is okay to ask, but also reminding your students that there is a time and a place and there is a way to ask these questions without overstepping someone's boundaries or offending them. But at the end of the day, you do want to just ask because you don't want to assume or you don't want to hurt their feelings. So by asking them, they're able to share with you, if they're comfortable, what makes them different and how that applies to themselves. So I do think that this book should be read to all students. I think it's extremely powerful, and it really just allows students to self-reflect and to reflect as a classroom and to just teach them new things about how we are all so different, but that is the most unique thing about us all. I also think that this book would be a great read aloud book, especially since each character does ask different questions. And I think that, again, you can have those conversations with your students about what the questions are asking and what a proper response would be, or how it would look if the students were to ask that question to another student. And so these are just some of my major takeaways from both the article and the book. But overall, I think it is so, so, so important to teach our students at a young age how we are all so different and how that makes us us, and how we can continue inspiring others and accepting our differences to just be who we are.